wanted it, and I am here to not deliver. Mostly because I can't. What am I not delivering on? That's a good question. I am not going to deliver on what was in the Blueprint Decoded. What is the Blueprint Decoded? Why should you care? Why are you still here? I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions here. Let's just go with the first one, all right? And we'll get around to yours in a minute, all right? Just like the video and subscribe in the meantime. The Blueprint Decoded is, as I was saying before, the most crucial seminar I ever did, and I also don't recommend it to virtually anyone. I recommend it pretty much for people who need self-help like they need chemotherapy. Do you need chemotherapy of the soul? Then you go and do Blueprint Decoded. And what is it? And this is really, like, obviously everybody, this is the big internet sin to admit. So you have to give me brownie points for being very brave. And I do feel very vulnerable saying this. And by saying very vulnerable or not, I'm kind of just, I admit it's just hilarious that this is the case. But I've got to say that Tyler Durden's Blueprint Decoded was up there with arguably the greatest red pill I've ever had. Like, in terms of personally, a red pill, probably number one. In fact, is number one. Definitely, without a doubt. The man owes his dues. What could I say? I mean, you know, not Kanye Jews, D-U-E. But you know what I'm talking about. And then the other one, obviously, is just Noam Chomsky's Manufacturing Consent. That's why I'm always recommending it, because that is kind of like the red pill on how society works and the hypnotism that we're all under. But that is that man explaining better than anyone else ever has the hypnotism that you have on yourself. The self-inflicted hypnotism, I suppose. A bit of societal hypnotism is also there. But anything ever that ever tells you, like, you thought reality was this way, but what if I was to tell you, that's why The Matrix 1 was awesome and The Matrix 4 was, what? Does Neo have a vagina now? Right? Like, it just didn't make sense. When you get that nice thing of just like, let me tell you how society really works, that's what that was. It was a 4-day seminar. I told you in the previous video, but this is a recap because I can't remember which one it is, so I can't direct you to it anyway, so I'm just going to say my classic thing that I've always say when I say it, which is 4 days. In the third day, I remember staring up at the ceiling and then the sun came up. I didn't go to sleep. I was looking at the roof the entire night, and coincidentally, then Tyler, the creator of this program, goes, how many people here last night couldn't sleep? Yeah, that's normal. A lot of people put their hands up in the room, because it completely shifts the way that you see reality. The other little proviso that I have before we go into this and how I don't think that you should necessarily watch this is that I recommended it to one of my friends once who, unbeknownst to me, he was still under contract at the place that I was working at, snapped, went to England, came back a woman, came up to me in the middle of the street, said that he wanted to meet me, and then she now comes up to me and says, you ruined my life. And I just wanted you to know that. And without any other explanation, I never saw him, her again. Ever. That's what this does to people. So do you necessarily need it? Probably not. Did I need it? On retrospect, yes. But let me just say this. When you go and look at what people say about what is the Blueprint Decoded, they always say things like, you can look at all of these chats, they'll always say something like, yeah, it was really good, but I couldn't not stop thinking about it for 3 years straight. It fucks with your head. And in doing that, it does completely fuck with your life. You know, like, okay, let's just go through the classics of what pickup is, yeah? What is pickup really supposed to be doing in order for you to get, like, success with women? Really what it's trying to do is either turn you into one of two people, right? Like either a leader of men or an outsider. And so that's why the old classic pickup meme of like someone walking in with a top hat and a watch around their neck, that is because it's kind of like a combination of those two things. Why? Because Emperor has no clothes stuff. If you are walking in with ridiculous clothes, it kind of shows that you're pretty boss, but also it shows I'm an outsider. I don't play by the rules of society. And so women want him and men want to be him. That's what's happening there. Anyway, he breaks this down from the principles because if you think about it, if you ever read The Game, really what The Game is saying is these are the little tricks and bells and whistles that work for just have sex with a woman at the smallest amount of time possible, really. And what is RSG? It's just like, yeah, but why? And that's fucked You don't necessarily need to know that. I know that a lot of you right now are like, where is it? I can't find it. I don't know. I don't know where it is. I was just blessed in that one aspect. But let me just tell you about the world that I grew up in, you little Gen Z shits. I'm sick to death of all these YouTube videos whining about, Tinder, only top 5% of men get any likes back on Tinder. It's like, yeah, well, welcome to the real world. That's exactly what it was like before, except for you had to face rejection. And even the fatties end up doing other little fatties on Tinder. You know what my world was? You didn't go to a high school that you liked chicks with, or chicks didn't like you there, or whatever. You're screwed for life. That was it. That was your one boat. Bye-bye. It's gone. And then I was doubly screwed, right? Because this is what happened. This is my personal journey. You want to know it? Too bad. You're going to learn it anyway. Make sure you come and see my stand-up shows touring across the country. I think I've got some more in Tasmania at the moment, so go check them out. Yeah. You know what was happening there? So scary. All right, so pretty much went to a school. Very, very happy that I went to that school as a performing arts school and made my little bag of tricks for stand-up. That was all well and good. However, in terms of women prospects there, wasn't really my cup of tea. Not really into hipsters. Think that they're pretty shit human beings. Think that they're kind of interesting, but I think that life has proven me correctly where most of the people that I went to school with are either man children or spinsters now. But aside from that one point, I had like my high school sweetheart that tragically went overseas, and so I was left with, as rap would say, my dick in my hand. I had no one. That was it. That was the one girl that I like gelled with and was just like, wow, you know? And then after that, I went to UNSW, and good luck finding anyone attractive there. I mean, no offense, but if you went there, come on. Canberra of universities. It's just not a looker in the bunch. It's just a very mathematical engineering place. I'm talking about the guys and girls. So didn't really get anything there either because it was just like, ugh. So what choice did I have pre the age of Tinder? Think about that, you little smartphone shit. What the hell did Geordies have? I had nothing! So I was so desperate as well, because that was it, yeah? Anyway, I had this outsider friend of mine, Dome Kang, if you ever watch the podcast. We're always talking about stories about him because he's just such an intriguing, fascinating man. One day I went over to his house and he was just going through all of his phases. Like one time he thought that he was a black man on welfare. Another time he thought he was a Christian preacher. Like he goes through all of these phases because he's, let's be honest, a bit insane, but he's awesome. He's extremely interesting. And one time he was just going through like pickup phase. And I noticed that when he was going out, he was doing all of this weird stuff, like doing exactly the opposite of what you should be doing socially. And it didn't really work, and it wasn't really calibrated, but there was something definitely different about his demeanor when he was going through the whole pickup phase, which is exactly what happened to me as well on retrospect. Which is another reason that I recommend it don't. Like, because, you know, if you're trying to get an office job or something like that, this is not the program for you. Like, anyway, remember that? Chemo self-development. That's what this is. Chemo. I, unbeknownst, did it. But anyway, I was just watching a bit of his. And this is the thing that is very deceptive about what Tyler's talking about in this. When you first listen to something like the Blueprint Decoded, and it's sitting there saying, like, all you have to do is be yourself. Okay, nasty hoarded advice. Stretch that out for a day. That starts to become a very deep question. Unsettlingly deep. That's what's happening there. He's just going through a bunch of things that you just glean through life, which is really like how a bunch of hypnosis works. It's like, oh yeah, I've seen that. And then you just move on with the rest of your life and you make all these assumptions, and all these assumptions just become your reality. And all he is doing is just pulling out all of that gunk. Anyway, so when I first saw that, I thought, lame. And he was just like, I don't know, man, there's something to it. There's just something to it. And he was freaking out about it. And in his usual, I think he just finished day 2, got bored of it, and then took on a different persona. However, me, being my very obsessive neckbeardy self who discovered skincare lotion, I deep dove into it. And that was the beginning of an internal journey that I am extremely grateful for personally. The reasons are very complicated, and I can't really explain them to you, and that's the point. It's just like I cannot tell you what is in that self-help seminar because you would need 4 days and you would need to repeat it ad nauseum because that is a man. This is the thing that you must say about it at the very end of it all. Yeah? That is a true triumph of human effort right there. That, let me just give you a background of that. Clearly, Tyler, if I was a betting man, I would say straight up orders. Now, I know that everyone uses that term namby-pamby on the internet these days, including myself, for myself, and you guys pay everybody out and whatever. Some of you probably, most likely are. There's quite a few anime thumbs there. Thank you very much. I see you obsessively commenting. Yep, you fit the type. But obviously, like everything else these days, everything's overdiagnosed. And no, I don't actually think that I have, autism. I just think that I'm just a very obsessive person, right? But I'm pretty sure that guy is. And think about this. What a head spin this is. That is a guy that most likely has autism, that learns social skills with his autism. That is like matter and antimatter smashing together in the Hydra Collider. What else could you expect except a God particle? It is a triumph. No matter what you think about the content, the effort that man went to. 10 years of going to the club, despite the fact that is the exact opposite environment that man was built for. It's like a penguin in the desert. That was him. And then somehow he adapted to become the road pingu, right? Like he broke down social situations because it was the only way that his autistic brain could do it to such a degree, to such finite, undeniable basic principles. Not just basic principles, but just like subatomic principles that you just sit there and you're like, okay, he's done it. He's just completely disassembled how social dynamics work. It's scary stuff. Now, anyway, so that was what was happening in my life. Let's just go back to that for a second because I just need to put that into perspective of, I'm just trying to figure out if this is for you or not, yeah? Started doing that, started doing the program, then your entire life morphs. I remember this was really weird, right? I remember just walking into university and just doing lectures and stuff like that and the tutorials and shit like this and just having such a mindset of a pickup artist that I would be walking up onto your marks are due for this course and I'd just be so confident that I'd be like, yeah, can I get an A? That kind of shit, not knowing anything about what I was doing, obviously didn't study. And every now and then, a lot of the time it worked. I'd just get a pass because of how confident I was. And then it would write there and they'd just be seriously lacking in substance, however, quite entertaining, right? One of the main things that you learn is that if you are just confident in any situation, most of the time it's going to pan out. Even when, and this was really embarrassing, every now and then, in retrospect, it wasn't at the time, I would be getting dressed down by university lecturers. I wake up with panics now because I'm just such a cuck of being in a long-term relationship for the last 10 years that I've become a normal human being again. But I remember at the time, a lecturer in front of a class of strangers dressing me down, being you haven't learned anything, you've made a mockery of this class, you've wasted everybody else's time, you've wasted everybody else's money, you've done absolutely nothing. How dare you? I'm giving you a fail. And I'd just be sitting there being this is just a shit test. It's all about having confidence. While that was happening, I was sitting there smiling and internally laughing because of how much this programs you to just be if as long as you're confident, everything works out. It's that. It is that level. So, I got to the point where, and this is something that I think has been very, very beneficial to me for the rest of my life, public embarrassment doesn't scare me at all. In fact, it just completely reprogrammed that. The thing, because this is all really, at the end of the day, that's, pickup really boils down to. It's just two things. It's just social skills and also doing what becomes the absolute antithesis of what a human being wants to do, which is walk up to a stranger. It's horrifying. It's mostly because of social rejection, but it's also just a thing of like, what if they kill me, right? There's all of those things going on in your head, and to twist that around takes severe deprogramming to the point, or programming, or whatever you want to call it, right? But anyway, like that would be happening in those university lectures, and I just walk out and I just be like, yeah, I passed that shit test, and then just get on with my day of like going to the club and picking up by myself. I think about it now, and it's just like, it's insane. I know that you Gen Zers just do not understand what the world this is, and also it is just obviously extremely fringe, weird behavior, even for back when I was, a Gen Y. But I go back to the point. If you didn't like the chicks at your high school, if you didn't like them at your university, and, I didn't have a job because I was just a unemployed bum, what choice did you have? That's all you had. You had to go to the club, right? But also, because all of my friends were kind of these people that are just like, that's lame, I'm cool, I'm just going to sit at home and smoke cones, and then because I smoke cones, I'll like lower my sexual drive a lot. Like that's what they were doing. And then on top of that, they liked the hipster chicks because they were hipsters themselves. So they went in and had very unfulfilling midterm relationships, and then they'd break up and then they'd go back to weed. I, on the other hand, wanted to go to the club. And so I started doing it by myself. Sober. You try and do that. Don't sit there and tell me I'm a freak. I know it already, but tell me that is not an impressive superpower. That isn't an impressive superpower. Come on. Who the fuck goes to clubs by themselves and sober? I'll tell you who goes. Absolute freaks. But this is the whole thing. While you do it, just like he was saying, right? Like you do that for long enough, and you become very socially calibrated to it. And it becomes normal to walk up to people. And this is the other thing as well that is incredible. And this is something that I'm very grateful for, that I did that for the reason that I became a stand-up, because it's very, very similar to pickup. Very similar, obviously, because it's just social rejection, but getting faced in front of hundreds of people, but still. And this is the whole thing. It helped me out so much because it was also the time that I was doing all of my stand-up, right? And so, while I was facing all of that shit and just facing, that was my life. It was fucked now that I think about it. Jeez, I haven't thought about this for a long time. This really should be behind the paywall because this is like getting pretty personal and raw. But like, I used to go to the club by myself, face those rejections, after a while got good at it, the same as what was happening with stand-up, that I'd be facing social rejection in front of hundreds of people or dozens of people or whatever the thing was that night. And, bombing or whatever, sometimes it working, sometimes it not. Same thing happening in the club. Sometimes you bomb, sometimes you wouldn't. And then slowly but surely calibrating, which is a key word, calibrating. Just getting these kind of reference experiences together of like, oh, okay, this is how I behave in this scenario, which is, exactly the exact opposite of what the human body wants to do. That's how I behave in that scenario, and then that becomes your new behavior. But the thing that most people don't understand about it, the thing that's very, very, very difficult to do, like with everything else, and this is the thing that I think kind of helped a lot, and it's the closest thing that I'll ever do to going to the army, which is pathetic because I know that people at the army have just had it so much harsher than that. But that is the closest thing that I had to it. Going to the club and then walking up to chicks and then them kind of looking at me like this and going, and then turning back again and talking to each other. It was hell. Kind of would prefer to go to Afghanistan than relive that, actually. But yeah, after a while, you kind of just get normal to it. And it's exactly the same, let me tell you this, as a signpost. Not that you probably will ever need to do either of these things, because both of these things are extremely, very niche activities, aren't they? You don't need to do that anymore because of Tinder, and very, very few people want to become stand-up comedians and just face rejection not every few minutes, like when you have openers, when you go out to the club, but every 7 seconds in front of strangers. You have 7 seconds of just like rejection. And then this is what happens. In both of those situations, the key, the absolute key, I know that this is nasty hoarded advice, is I don't care anymore. But you only get there by just grinding it out and just being like, ugh, okay, that worked. Fuck, that was, even though I hate this word and it makes me cringe behavior. Like you just keep getting those reference experiences until you just like, and you become stone cold. And also the other reason, just to let you know, because like, God, it was so weird now that I think back at it. Like after, because really, like I never wanted to be like a pickup artist. I just wanted to meet girls that were out of my social circle. That was pretty much it. And I think that I made the right choice now that, like, you know, I've been in a long-term relationship and wouldn't have found them otherwise if I didn't go to the club. That's why I'm in a relationship now, because I did that. But that's what he was saying, right? Like, most guys just want to learn pickup so that they can get a long-term relationship. Like, I know that you see a lot of these, you know, social dynamics, like, podcasts now that come up and they're just like, guys never want to settle down, they never want to get a woman. Like, nah, they do. What they want is the ability to every now and then go out and fuck another stray. And, you know, if ladies, if you let your guy do that, you've got one for life. I really do think that, though. That's mostly what men want. To have a queen and a harem, obviously, right? But, like, no, but, you know, they give it up for the right queen. They definitely do. And that's when I think most guys stop. So this is why I'm saying you don't necessarily need chemo. You really don't. Not in this day and age. Not unless you have. This is the way that I would describe it, all right? If you are so bad at social skills, like subpar even for a guy, because, look, I am by no means, you know, a socially intelligent king. This is the whole thing. No guy is, except for Bill Clinton. He's a freak. There's a couple of guys you know, right, that would probably be very socially intelligent, but social intelligence is more the realm of women, right? Like, intelligence, it's more the realm of guys. Triggered chicks? Are you triggered by this whole thing? You probably are. But, like, you know what I'm saying, though, yeah? Like, guys are usually into building systems/things. Women are, like, into the, you know, interconnected social intelligence of people and figuring out the dynamics that way. They're both actually really about resource distribution. It's just one is kind of just, like, inanimate resource distribution. One is animate resource distribution. But anyway, they're usually the ones that are much more socially intelligent. So you are always playing on an unfair field, and usually the woman, like, two things, they kind of talent scout like guys that are going to be alpha males in the future, or they kind of get like hoodooed by alpha males that are kind of just going to pump and dump them. And then a lot of the time they kind of just like, all right, I'll just forgive that cringy behavior and like, yeah, we'll go on a date, because it's just most guys just don't have social, like guys in general have to learn social skills, you know, just like how women have to learn, I suppose, discipline is probably the closest thing to the word for it. Like discipline and decision making, which is like the realm of guys, like pattern recognition, I suppose. Those kinds of things. Like those are the dynamics at play. Anyway, so if you notice that, like say that you're a young guy and you see that and you're just like not as attuned as a chick your age is, that is completely normal. You don't necessarily need to like, you know, go hard on pickup or whatever like that. But say you're an absolute incel loser, right? Probably should do it. Like there's worse things for you to be mulling on for the next 3 years, such as how do I shoot up a school? Yeah? It is way better for you to be doing it in that context. Like if you are kind of like Captain Ahab with the white whale, except for like losing your virginity, then maybe you should do it. I, on retrospect, really didn't need to do that. Really what I should have done is just go to uni parties, which I kind of discovered later on existed. But I just, every time I was at uni, I was like, this sucks, went home, right? Like that's really all I should have done. Yeah. So, I'm grateful, however, that I did do it, because my God, that was helpful in stand-up. You really don't understand how difficult stand-up comedy is when you first start. Everybody always sits there and is like, he's just saying things on stage. I suppose it's actually the same way that visual artists feel about it. And let's just take away joke construct, which is just another discipline altogether that I did also have to learn. But stage presence, not even that, being able to deal with rejection, like being broke, absolutely dead broke, knowing that on a classic societal status level, you have no status, you have no value. None of that is available to you. And yet you're going up on stage to a bunch of people and saying, essentially by being there, I'm funny, laugh at me. What is funny? Funny is a level of social status. It takes a lot for you to get up and do. Remember all the studies. Most people are more scared of public speaking than they are of death. Human beings hate social rejection. That's what that does. More than anything else, the greatest lesson that it'll ever learn is you can reprogram your mind not to be, to hate social rejection, I suppose. So, I honestly think that if it wasn't for Tyler's RSD stand-up, I just wouldn't be able to clock on the level of stage presence. Just to be that much of a loser, to walk home after bombing in front of a crowd and having no respite from anyone, because again, it was a solitary act. Nobody else that I knew wanted to be doing stand-up, so I would be going to these stand-up venues by myself with a bunch of cliquey comedians sitting there, not wanting you to get on stage, doing the little when you walk off and you bomb, and the entire audience hating you, and then the MC of the night making fun of you and saying that you suck just for a cheap laugh, and then you walking home by yourself because you couldn't afford to catch even a bus, right? Sometimes I would have to walk an hour and a half because I was that broke. I don't think I could have done it without RSD. But then again, I needed to go to that level for the job that I had. So it actually did become useful in the end for that reason. Might be the same with you if you are one of these dudes that's just really, really fucked with women, has no friends, all that kind of stuff. Maybe you do need it broken down, but just be prepared to be fucking horrified and be scared for the next 3 years straight as your brain tries to piece together what that actually means. Which also, let's be honest, a lot of it is just oh yeah, what did he say again? Anyway, if you liked that, make sure that you sign up to Jordan Shanks, because I will not be freaking you out like that. I will be freaking you out every now and then, but I am going to get better results out of you. You know what I got the other day? Somebody wrote in saying, when I first started watching Jordan Shanks, because I've been doing this for years now, when he first started watching Jordan Shanks, he was thinking, can I get into this shitty TAFE course at some country town for visual arts? And recently, he's just done his first gallery show at, I can't remember because I'm not in the arts world, but it was I looked it up, it was one of those esteemed, state gallery things, he was there. He was there, and he ascribes it to Jordan Shanks. It is not the only success story that I have had. Anywhere that I go across the country, anyone that watches this channel becomes successful. It is not because I am smart. It is not because it's people like that. I am just standing on giant shoulders. I've just read and watched a lot of this stuff, and I know how to keep it in your mind. I know how to program you so that you are able to get the best out of you. Remember how we were talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs? I am trying to get you into actualizing all the time, self-actualization, becoming the best version of yourself. That's what this channel's about. So at a very minimum, subscribe, but if you want an extra 2 videos a week that is really going to hone this into you, that is really going to condition you for success, make sure that you sign up to Jordan Shanks. I'll see you next time. Sorry this was such a long video.